My microphone there. There we go. Going to call this meeting to order. Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's work session is on the Downtown Streetscape project. And at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Sarah Copeland and Anthony Sands.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We wanted to, you got a very long and detailed memo with a lot of background about this project. So we don't really necessarily want to rehash all the background, but we did want to make sure that you were all very familiar with the design of the Downtown Streetscape project and what we're planning to do. Some of this will look familiar to maybe a couple of you, because this presentation is really based on the presentation that a couple of you would have seen from back in the fall of 2019. So we'll start with the things that this project is doing. We are refreshing our downtown landscape, our downtown sidewalks, our street furnishings, and our lighting. We are not really doing anything to the streets through downtown, so we're not adding bike lanes, we're not changing the roadway configuration, we're not moving the curbs. We're really focusing on the places where people are walking to and from our downtown businesses. The original budget for this project was $3 million. It was phased as one big project, although we'll talk about construction phasing a little later. And it's all being funded from the gaming fund. So these are some of the existing conditions, and these pictures are getting a little older now, but this is still, I think, pretty representative of what downtown looks like. We have a need for more seating downtown, and for bike racks. I think some of you probably have gotten the same emails that I have over the last year or so. I'm requesting bike racks in front of some of our downtown businesses. We have tree roots around our trees that are girdling, which I'd never heard of before this project, but that's when the tree roots grow up and around the trunk of the tree instead of going down. That's a sign that the tree doesn't have enough space, it's not getting good oxygen, and that's a sign that it's probably going to start into decline. Our light poles are starting to literally crumble around their bases. We have a mix of new and old pavers, and so you can see that in their color. And we have, in some areas, a lack of shade where we have lost trees over time and they haven't been replaced. So these are the conditions that were leading us to do this project in the first place. We did a community meeting back in the fall of 2019 to talk about different design options for downtown. The design option, particularly at our intersections where we're looking at doing a decorative pattern in our paving, the design option that was chosen was called the North Star pattern. I know it's kind of hard to see in some of these pictures, but you can kind of see that, that star pattern there, particularly down in the lower right, using colored concrete. The sidewalk plan is for, we will still have some pavers downtown, but it's going to be more of a band of pavers, and then using some concrete as well. So we will have kind of a planting and furnishing zone along the curb. We will have our trees with bigger tree wells so that they get more oxygen and they're healthier, longer. And that's where all of the furnishings will be. We'll have a band of pavers and then a band of concrete up against the buildings in downtown. And that will connect to the North Star design at the intersections. In 2019, when we discussed this plan with council, we still had a few trees where we weren't sure if they were healthy enough or if they would need to be removed. So we wanted to be really clear about this because at some point in the next few months, we'll start to remove the trees that are either not in good condition or that we don't think will survive the construction process. So this is our updated map of trees that are going to be removed, shown in red, and trees that we expect to keep in green. I said in the memo a majority of trees are going to be removed. I counted again and I have it flipped. It's about half and half, but 34 trees we're expecting to keep and 32 trees we're expecting to remove. And we might lose a couple more during the construction process, but our goal is to keep as many healthy trees as we can and replace the trees that we can't save. So again, we'll come back to our communication plan around all of this, but we think that this is going to be an important element for everyone to understand that there's going to be some significant tree removal. One of the other design decisions that was made in 2019 was about spacing. So we're going to have 50-foot spacing between the lights and 50-foot spacing between the trees and try to evenly space our lights and our trees along the street. There might be a few spots where we're keeping existing trees where we're not quite at 50, but that's our goal for the design. And then the light style that was selected as part of this was a more traditional style, similar to what we have out there now. We won't be keeping those exact lights, but it'll be in that style of a traditional fixture for the lighting.
So part of this project also includes updating the ADA sidewalk ramps to meet compliance. As part of that, the star design that was originally proposed needs to be shrunken down just a little bit to accommodate those new ramp designs. So keeping the same pattern, just accommodating, making it a little bit smaller. We're trying not to tear up downtown all at once, so the project's definitely going to be phased. This is kind of the proposed phasing plan now, and kind of talk more about how we're going to communicate that. But we would move from block to block, side to side, through the project to help minimize the effect of the whole overall construction. Our communication plan, as it is right now, we would start with mailing letters to all business owners and property owners. We would follow it up with a meet the contractor open house. So we would try to get a kind of open house format style where the contractor would be there, we would be there, and be able to answer any questions. We'd have a project web page on our website to kind of continuously update through the project. And then each phase that you saw there, we would go door to door prior to starting each phase to notify businesses.
Can I ask you one question here?
Yes. Yeah.
How long is each phase going to take? Are they about the same, or it kind of depends on?
It kind of depends on the different aesthetics that are in each one. I mean, they would start with the concrete base, the pavers, and there'd be a lot of underground work that would come first. So it's kind of hard to say how each phase would be timed at this point.
It also depends on what do you mean by how the length of a phase. We are expecting the pedestrian traffic control to be up in each block for about 6 weeks. So it's about 9 months total. So there might be things that they're still finishing, like punch list items that might take longer. But in terms of if I'm a downtown business owner, how long is the sidewalk going to be torn up? About 6 weeks.
Perfect, thank you.
And then I might let you talk about the orange cone.
So we would really, in an ideal world, a successful project is when we finish construction and Mega KC pulls up everything and they're done, we would like to have a better relationship with the downtown businesses than we do at the start of the project. We know that construction is inconvenient and not everything is going to go smoothly, but if at least we at the end feel like we were all on the same team and we got through it together, that's our goal. So our thought is we're kicking around having a weekly, for lack of a better name, orange cone coffee, where we say every week we will be somewhere with coffee and maybe the occasional donut. And if you have issues, the contractor is not as clean as you would like, or you don't understand when we're going to start on your block, or anything else, you can find us at this location and get us our assistance, or talk to the contractor, or whatever it is. We think communication is going to be a key part of getting this project done successfully. And so that's our thought for an ongoing communication, so that people know how to find us and they can just walk somewhere nearby and talk to a person about the project. And then the downtown trees, to go back to that, they are a whole different communication element of this. A lot of the other things before construction, during construction, are focused on our downtown property owners and businesses. If you are just the owner of Donut King, maybe you don't care about this project. If you are the owner of Chapels, you're going to live with this project for a while. But if you're just somebody who lives in North Kansas City, or you pass through on an occasional basis, you're probably going to notice when these trees start to come down, and that's probably going to be a concern. So we think the downtown trees have their own communication plan that is much more broad-based, where we're trying to let as many people as possible know, we have a plan. We have a plan to replace these trees. That we're doing this partially so that we can make these trees, the trees that we save and the trees that we plant, healthier, longer. We really don't want people to just get the idea that we're cutting down trees with no plan of what's going to happen next. But because tree removal is a great thing to do in the winter, it might be that we remove trees this winter and time elapses before we get to these construction phases to replace them. So just, we're a little gun shy about construction along Armour, to be honest. So we want to try to get as much communication specifically about the trees out as we possibly can.
Councilmember Clevenger.
So maybe something like in the Northtown report as well, kind of, or some other kind of communication to the residents along with the businesses, I think is a good idea. So thank you.
Councilmember Saper.
Maybe you could clear up something for me. I'm having trouble seeing how residents and even the businesses benefit from this $3 million expenditure.
Well, sir, I would go back to these conditions. If we do nothing, we will continue to remove trees and not replace them. Our pavers look great on the top, but they're being eaten away by wet soil underneath. So eventually, we will have to start patching with concrete.
We've already done that at Armour and Swift, and I don't know why we did that, since the pavers were removed and stored somewhere.
Right, they're not all in great condition, and because we knew this project was coming, we put back concrete, knowing that construction was planned. So I would say these pictures kind of illustrate why we're planning to do this project. Downtown streetscapes are a 30 to 40 year investment, and our investment happened 30 plus years ago.
I guess one thing that troubles me is, for instance, the light poles need to be replaced. I actually walked those blocks, counted them, and found approximately 2% or less were in that condition. Most had some cracks, or not most, some had cracks. About 5 to 10% had hairline cracks in them. The others were in fine shape.
Right,
And I don't see why we're spending that kind of money.
So we get really inconsistent lighting levels through downtown. These lights not only provide lighting to the sidewalks, but they also provide lighting to the street. And so the lighting levels are very inconsistent. Council's direction in 2019 was that they wanted to see brighter lighting downtown overall. And we also want to make sure that you get, there are spots where it's very dim, either because the light's not well placed in coordination with the trees that are next to it, or because it's just not throwing off enough illumination. And lighting is definitely a safety issue, particularly in the winter months when it's darker. We want downtown to be better lit.
Well, I'm concerned about the intensity of lighting issue because, for instance, Kansas City went through that, 15 years ago with intensive lighting throughout the city, north, south, all over, all 4 counties, in fact. However, I don't think anyone here would agree that Kansas City has its sense of security and safety has increased because of that. And the sense of being comfortable in the city hasn't really increased, I don't think. And the intensity of lighting has always been an issue for many years across the country. Chicago led the way decades ago with intense lighting. And in fact, I think people have found that sometimes you can have too much lighting. You lose some of the quaint charm that we like to maintain in North Kansas City with too much intensity. And those are some of my concerns. Whether anybody else shares them or not, I don't know.
I would like to bring up just a few more things that perhaps are glossed over a little bit. We are experiencing heaving on several of these pavers. We have had several people reach out to us, downtown businesses specifically, about the condition of the pavers in front of their building, about pedestrian safety, about trip hazards. Once we are notified, we have to take action, which is why some of those repairs have happened. I understand the price point of this particular project. Believe me, I do. But this is an investment in our downtown corridor. This is our red carpet aside from the Burlington product, or along the Burlington corridor project. When people come and interact with our city, this is how it looks. And right now, unfortunately, this is how we are presenting ourselves to our visitors and our residents, is infrastructure that is not looking probably the way that if you were to present yourself to an outside person, this is how people are interacting with our facility, which is why in 2019 the council directed us to undertake this particular project.
Councilmember
And I
Graves.
thought that was unwise at the time.
Councilmember Graves.
I have a question. I read the report and was interested in the pavers that you're talking about. There's a note in here that says that clay pavers last longer than concrete pavers, and Confluence recommends them for this project in combination with concrete. And I do attest to the poor condition of the current pavers in that area. So what would clay pavers look like, and are they, is that the latest, greatest as far as durability? Because this project's supposed to last, what, about 30 years? So if we do this right, then we shouldn't have to mess with it for 30 years. So the clay pavers, do you have a picture of that? Did I miss that somewhere? They look the same, or it's just made out of a different material?
I think that what we have is clay pavers, if I remember correctly. The final pattern that will be used is actually going to be determined by Mega. So we're doing this as a construction manager at-risk project, where we had 60% design plans prepared by Confluence, and then that went out as part of the bid package. So I think there were 3 paver patterns that were included in the 60% plans. And that will be part of Mega's work, is to determine which one of these is the in terms of constructability, which one of these are we going to move forward with and pricing? Because I forget which one he said now. One of them's harder to install than the other 2.
Herringbone.
Yeah, the herringbone is harder. So in terms of what the paver pattern will look like, that's something that Mega is finishing as part of their pre-construction work. But they have a color, but I don't recall what the color is off the top of my head.
I guess I was more concerned with just the durability than the color. If we're going to spend this kind of money, I just want to make sure that it doesn't deteriorate in the future. So,
I might add, one of the great things about the paver design that Confluence has included is that there's a concrete base under these new pavers, so it helps them not fracture.
shift as much.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
So what's the current composition? Is it just sitting on top of dirt?
In some places, yeah, it depends on the era of which it was.
There is
Yeah.
concrete
enough.
under some of them.
Some.
That's
Okay.
why they are as smooth as they are.
Okay, I thought I saw, okay, Councilmember Smith.
I really like what I see. I appreciate the work that's gone into it. As far as the trees that are going in, are we looking at the species so that the roots won't be such that they'll start uprooting and upheaving the pavers over the next 20 years or so, like we see with the sidewalks through the avenues where they've just blown them up in some places? Are we looking at the type of trees and the species to make sure that doesn't happen?
Along Armour Road, we're still using the honey locusts, which is what we have.
Okay. Do those have the type of roots that will push up under the concrete or up under the subsurface?
Have you had any issues with the sidewalks along Armour Road?
I mean, Kim just mentioned that it was heaving. I didn't know if that was because of roots.
The heaving
or...
is not so much about the tree roots as it is a freeze frost.
Okay. Yeah, the freeze and thaw. And then the second question I had, or the second thought, was with the communication. I think that you've got a great plan laid out. One thing I might add is when you go door to door, to have someone you spoke to at the business just sign off that they spoke with you, so that there's kind of when inevitably somebody didn't get the memo or somebody didn't hear it, we have like we talked to this person. If it didn't reach up the chain, then maybe we figure out why. But making sure that we know.
I'm going to fire one away on tree size here. I'm not an arborist, so this will probably not go well. Is it possible to replace them with larger, more mature trees? Because I know Councilmember Smith had already discussed that previously with the Parks Board, looking at installing, replacing trees in the park. Oh, is there an answer to that over here?
Well, yeah, if I can interrupt, I'm not trying to interrupt, but the tree, that's the questions that Councilmember Smith, and that the trees are actually addressed in this report on page 9 of 14. And I'm also not an arborist, so I don't even know what these species are, but they're listed here. It says they presented ginkgo, which is too slow growing for this project, lace, bark, elm, honey, locust, and green vase. I don't want to try to even say that.
Oh, I'm looking at it too, yeah.
Silcova.
There we go. Now we got an arborist. Okay. No, I guess, yeah, that's ultimately the question. I mean, the ultimate, do you buy them as I guess, baby plants, or are we able to find more mature? Because that's a lot of shade you're going to be losing as you start to take down all those plants.
Well, and I think that's why the keeping as many healthy trees as we could
Yeah.
was desirable, because then we will have more shade from those healthy trees. There is a point at which it's impractical to plant trees just because of their size and the size of the root ball. But we do have a minimum size that we require for construction projects. So,
Okay.
I mean, they're not going to be as big as the ones we have out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Thank you.
unfortunate.
And I don't know if we have a picture of but one other thing, the new tree wells in the sidewalk area will be larger to help accommodate the tree as they grow. Sorry.
But to go back, no, let's go in the other direction. The real direction that we need from you all tonight is how you would prefer to move forward with this project. As indicated in the memo, as Mega has been finishing their pricing exercises and getting ready to put out the bid packages, where they are in pricing is about $3.7 million, which is more than our budget. So we see two real options for moving forward here. One is to reduce the overall project scope by removing some of the blocks from the project, and we could potentially budget for those in a future budget year, or to increase the size of the project budget. And that's the direction that we need from you tonight, so that we can pass that along to Mega, so they can finalize things and get ready. The next step is to present you with a guaranteed maximum price contract. So we need this direction before they can do that.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Just a couple of thoughts, and, one of the items that I was going to bring up is that $3 million, again, was a couple of years ago. So we're at the 3.7. As far as, I think overall, we should complete the project, whether we phase it out or not, but a lot of times when we phase things out, we get a higher cost on the next phase than we anticipated. And I know we spent some money and are spending some money on Armor Road for the complete streets. I think with the complete streets, having a good downtown, we at least want to do, want this to last, as like Councilman Graves said, and want it to be durable. So, I'm definitely in favor of the project. However we do it is however we do it. But, we definitely need to, I think, as far as this, it's part of our infrastructure of what we need to, for the ADA and things of that nature, and definitely need to continue addressing our infrastructure as well. So
I'm going to ask the council in reverse here. Going with option B first, because if we don't want to go with option B, then we can get into, what option A really looks like here. Would council be in favor of increasing the budget from 3 to 3.7? Got one no.
I think my thought on this, because I guess
Yeah.
the plain direction of like yes or no. My thought on this is not just, of course, I think we all got shocked by the dollar amount. We always do with every project. My immediate thought was like, why don't we just hire a team for the city, and then we'll give them benefits, and all this will be, and it's not realistic, right? And so we try to find out other ways. When I did the math, which I don't do math, but when I did the math based on like say 3.8, if it increases, it's roughly 127 a year, 127,000 a year. And I'm trying to think like, so that we dial that back, if we're looking for it to last 30 years, preferably, think about the projects that we take on and repairs that we do that I'm sure exceed 130,000 a year when we have to repair sidewalks or things in the downtown scape. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what makes it feel more feasible to me, is when we're thinking of let's do it right the first time. Then I start to weigh out the budget increase seems a little more viable it's always terrible. It's never fun to come in and go, oh, 700,000 more, you say. But I also want it done right kind of the first time. To Anthony's point about, color intensity, with lighting is a necessity for walking about. It is a safety concern, not just like cops and robbers style, but just walking and seeing where you're stepping. And there's a lot of litigious opportunities that exist when you simply haven't provided lighting for somebody to go from their car up a curb to a door, whether it be for work or whether it be, for nightlife or whatever it is. And that's just the cost of, I guess, running a city, I mean, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I don't want us to have like blinding 5,000 K color temperature lights. I'd like us to have something more ambient, but also fitting to the environment. So I appreciate you pointing out, yeah, I don't want to see these like blinding blue lights like in hospitals, but we can do something to really not mess with the Hallmark movie scene that we're going for, because Anna's going to get a movie deal, but that's another topic.
Now you hit right on his point, though. This will be.
In terms of complete streets, there are no bicycle lanes being proposed?
No, this is a streetscape project. It does not affect the roadway configuration.
Are you proposing them? It was originally part of the Armor Road Streetscape plan, but as we did the other part of the project and starting to look at, the reality of what you'd have to do in the downtown area, switching those diagonal spaces to parallel spaces to accommodate the track, it didn't seem feasible anymore.
So we're going to have we're spending lots of money on these streets, complete streets. We're talking about many millions on Burlington for complete streets, yet we're going to have this gap downtown. Is this what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So we're talking about an incomplete street project.
This is a downtown streetscape project.
I think I might add, part of Phase 2 of Armor Road that we've kind of talked about with a different project includes a way to transition the bicycle lanes into the downtown phase of Armor Road. So that project kind of includes the bike boxes and the transition at that point.
And I do believe that was some of our consideration when we went and looked at the bicycle laws and changing the bicycle laws, allowing someone to ride in what would be considered the downtown business district. Yeah, if I recall. But it's been a few years now. I saw Palumbi, and then I'll get to Clevenger.
So back to kind of town square. So I know we had talked about this a few months back, and kind of just given a general, I guess, guidance as to kind of what we wanted the town square area to look like. So I guess I was thinking that the change in budget, I guess, from 3 to 3.7 million was going to incorporate more of that as to why the budget was going to go up so much. But it looks like we're only kind of budgeting that 200,000 still. So where is like the majority, or has Mega KC said where the majority of the increased costs would be? And is there a way for us to kind of limit some of these smaller designs that we have so that we don't go so over budget?
It would be difficult. We look. I think we're talking about components of the project, so that's why we kind of proposed option A as blocks. It would be really difficult to go in and look at each component and try to pull those out individually.
Where did the $3 million come from?
Yeah. Well, Councilmember Clevenger, and then we'll get. I already called on.
Question, can you go back to the slide with the different phases, please? Yeah, okay. And so I know in the memo it said if you wanted to reduce the scope, is taking out Swift, some blocks on Swift. However, I do want to note that on Swift, we've got a lot of new businesses that have come in, at least like at 18th and Swift, going to have the new apartments down there. So I do think that the Swift blocks are also important on the streetscape. Just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that real quick. Where did the $3 million originate? Was that back in, I don't know, I don't know how many
I
years
mean,
ago.
what year did we first?
Yeah, yeah.
Where did the number come from? Like, was that an estimate internally, or did it come from one of our consultants?
That number started out in 2015 as a number just to replace the trees and to do some limited, expanding the tree wells. So some limited, hardscape work. And then when this project turned into the bigger downtown streetscape project, we took a stab at estimating the main cost driver in changing from we're just going to replace trees and a little bit of concrete and pavers to streetscape is lighting. So staff took a stab at estimating the cost of replacing the existing lights based on the number of light poles that we had and what we thought a per pole cost would be. That number was put into the budget probably in 2018, although it could have been 17. It has never increased.
Okay. So, can I follow up?
Councilmember,
So, to see the, like, 3 million is the number I've heard all along since I've been with the council, and to see it jump 23% is jarring. The light poles, are these poles that we own, they're not ones we lease from Evergy?
We own these.
What would it look like to have Evergy come in and do that portion and us lease it from them, rather than us handle the entire replacement?
I'm not sure if they would do decorative pedestrian scale lighting in their
Okay.
program. We would have to look into that.
Do they have an option that would be maybe not as ornate, but still it would be worthwhile to look at if that's the main cost driver?
If I could add just one small comment. I
Sure.
used to work for a community that did lease their poles, and Evergy does not allow decorative banners on their leased ones, so I'm just throwing that out there. It's why one of the reasons communities do choose to purchase. I'm unsure if Evergy would allow us to do the banners or the decorative lights, those snowflakes.
then I
When
wouldn't
you
know
are
what season it is.
leasing, you are, they are not yours. You have to ask permission for things. So I'm just going to throw that out there because that's something in my past community that we ran into. And it was because we leased and did not own those particular poles. So
Sure.
just something to chew on.
It would be, honestly, it would be worth the conversation before we green light, if that's the biggest cost driver of the price of the project. And then
I'm not sure at this point I could say it's the biggest. It's one of the biggest.
any dollar amount that you have in your head on what the lighting is costing?
It's north of $1 million.
North of $1 million, so roughly a third of the project, give or take. Well, third of the original. Yeah, a quarter of it. I would encourage that conversation. I'm not obviously going to tell you, give you a direction right now, say you must, but it seems worthwhile to have. And then the other question I had is the transition of the bike lane. You mentioned that from, I think it's Fayette, where it dead ends into the sidewalk right now. What does that, do we have any sort of mock-up of what that transition looks like to move onto the street?
No,
No.
we don't.
Okay.
The plan for Armor Road, the next phase of Armor Road is to install a bike box there in coordination with the right turn lane onto Fayette, but we do not have a mock-up of that beyond the plans which were part of your last agenda packet.
Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together, first of all. I am in favor of getting this done. I tend to lean more towards, as a resident, I would say the lighting has been an issue, just being down on Armour in the evenings. And I am concerned that if we let this go and patchwork things and fix it, we are leaving ourselves open to a lawsuit, which we know will be more than the $700,000 by the time you get to the end of it. So I am in favor of doing this and doing it right, doing it well, and having it last another 30 years.
I agree. And if you ever want to do a solid round with someone that knows every brick and every sidewalk, go out with Danny Ship sometime. That guy knows every brick. Councilmember Graves.
I have a question. Might be a stupid question. You could put on the list of stupid questions I've asked, but if this was presented 2 years ago and the cost at that time was $3 million, why wasn't it done 2 years ago? Why was it?
Because this was
Funded.
part of the package of projects that was put on hold at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, so
Anything that was
COVID.
not like under construction or under contract was put on hold, and this was one of those items. So council directed us not to move forward, and we were ready to go out for the CMAR RFP at the time, but it was put on hold.
Okay. So then, I mean, that just raises the question in my mind, like, you know, if we punt, is there going to be a council sitting here in 2 years and the cost is $5 million?
I think that that is probable.
That's very.
I hate to say it, costs only go up over time on capital projects. And we're in competition with every other municipality on large-scale capital projects. So we did put an accelerator in there. Again, the $3 million cost wasn't, we didn't know. You know, it's one of those things at the staff level, I'll be honest, we wonder how much do we, quote unquote, you know, increase the cost without really true up numbers. We try not to overinflate the numbers in a budget. We try to be very honest and true with the numbers that we know when we present a budget. Obviously, sometimes when they actually go out to bid, we get sticker shock just as much as you guys do. But we're really trying not to overinflate numbers in a budget when we present it. We try to go, these are the numbers that we were provided, we believe were true, and sometimes when the bids come back like this, we are just as sticker shocked as you are. But we feel from a budget perspective, we don't want to inflate them so much that we are casting false numbers.
Then
Did you have a follow-up?
one other thing I want to, not even a follow-up, just kind of a thought off the top of my head is like, you know, it was proposed that possibly you gave us like two options. Option A, delete blocks essentially. Option B, just increase the budget to 3.7 million. And, you know, if we were to delete blocks, I mean, I'm looking at this map here and I'm going through in my mind, like what's around in these various areas. And some of these areas that we're talking about spending massive amounts of money fixing up are pretty bizarre areas in my opinion. Like, you know, obviously the southwest corner of Armour and Swift is a bunch of grass. There's nothing there with no plans to develop that area. And, you know, some of these blocks are obviously have businesses, have a lot of pedestrians, and there's a couple blocks on here that in my mind are less traveled by the pedestrian. That's just a thought off the top of my head.
And that's kind of what some of the things we're looking for direction on. The only thing I would say about that is you will pay for remobilization costs. So again, eventually we will need to get to some of these blocks just because the infrastructure is deteriorating. So again, you know, projects that are skipped today, it will be more expensive in the future.
Councilmember Toll.
On the back, in case people in the audience haven't looked, they have the businesses that are up there on the maps in the back, but I would not skip over just because it's a vacant lot right there. It's a well-traveled area. That's one of the most, thank you, this one? Am I looking at it backwards? Oh, no. Yeah, I wouldn't skip it just because that's a vacant lot. It would look really odd if you just skipped one corner of this intersection, to me. And the other thing I wanted to say to keep in mind is that probably more than any other council that has ever been, we are going to have these projects that are from years past because everything was put on hold. Now it's time to go again, so if we don't make the move, it's just another example of the hard work that they put in and the hours that we've paid for them to prepare for this, and then we drop it. We'll come back years later because it needs to be done, and just like you said, it would be $5 million in 5 years or whatever number you threw out there. So the only reason why we're here doing this right now is because of the pandemic, and it was put on hold, and I am ready to get it moving.
I would agree. It would be nice to see that southwest corner get developed with something, but, you know, at this point, it's still a central block, I think. So it'd be good to have it all done at once. And I'm assuming if they eventually, something happens on that lot, I mean, this is all in our right of way. I mean, so no project would impact, and if it did, they'd have to bring it back to, you know, where it was. Okay, thank you. Further council member comments?
I'd be in favor of getting it done. If it takes increasing the budget, maybe we have the conversation with Evergy, maybe not, if you have time. But I'd side with Lisa. I'd say let's get it done.
Sounds like I have general favorability towards getting it all done at once.
I will last minute mention Evergy
Sure.
rebates that are also available, just because they are. I just looked at them. So Sorry, guys.
Noting the dissent of Councilmember Saper. There we go. Good. What else do you need? Any further
We
guidance?
would just note, next steps based on this direction. Mega KC is working on finishing the pricing and their bid packages, and they expect to have a guaranteed maximum price contract on your agenda on November 16th. That's the next major milestone in this project. And once that's approved, we'll start doing outreach to our downtown businesses and property owners. That will also allow them to finalize the schedule so we can plan on when tree removal is going to happen and when we need to notify people about that.
Perfect.
Communication is key. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
When you start doing the communication, can you email us a PDF so that we can work on pushing it out to everybody in our wards to assist with that? Because I would be happy to push that on so we can try from lots of different avenues.
Thank you. Fantastic. With that,
That's all that we have. We really appreciate your time and feedback.
adjourn. See everyone at 7.